Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom's back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Now today I want to talk about some special tags that we may be seeing in the future. Now I'm not saying that we may be seeing because I feel like this is in the work at Hutch. I don't know if this is in the works at Hutch, but this is definitely suggestions for the team to take forward into the future. Today I'm giving you my ideas of what some special tags collection series in the future could look like. And the reason why I'm making a video like this today is because I'm really unhappy with the selection of cars that were selected for trading paint. I asked this so many times in yesterday's video, what are the correlation between these cars? What is significant about trading paint? Because trading paint, for what I know in the automotive world, is when you're racing, you're in the heat of the moment, you bump into other cars and you might kind of scratch each other and paint might come from one car to the other, you know, that kind of stuff, like automotive, you know, just racing terminology. And I just don't see how any of these cars kind of bleed into the theme of trading paint. If anything, this is the most vague collection tag we've had to date, where it really feels like the designer really didn't give a shit and he was just like, yeah bro, I'm just gonna pick some cars out of a hat and just put a name over it. Like, I feel like the flair of the collection tags have kind of gone away a bit. I talked about it yesterday, right? I had a lot of fun with Call of the Wild. I had a lot of fun with Silver Screen. I had a lot of fun with Around the World because everything there made sense. You know, you could analyze and kind of read into the tag and understand why those cars were chosen. But you have things like this and some other special tags that we've seen. So it was things like Nightmare Fuel and Photo Finish. You remember those? Those were really ambiguous. And then this one over here, Trading Paint, is no different. So in today's video, I kind of want to go through some special tags which I feel like would be nice inclusions into the future, which are more accurate and they come with a more solid theme. So let's get into that. All right, so let's get into it. Exhibit A. Now, I can only wish there's 100 cars in Top Drives, or anybody can only wish there's 100 cars in Top Drives. So if I want to make a special tag that surpass 100, that is also impossible. But you can take my range as a general idea. So this is the first one that I have for a special tag idea. It's a David and Goliath kind of situation, but I think it could be a funny play on words if you add a car reference to it, like maybe like a Bentley and Mini, or you know, something really heavy and something really light. And out of the 100 cars, I've selected 9 commons, 15 uncommons, 14 rare, 14 super rare, 16 ultra rare, 14 epics, and 18 legendaries. Now, how this basically works, the theme surrounding this is it focuses on the heaviest cars in the game and the lightest cars in the game. So the only cars that are selected here are cars that weigh over 2,000 kgs and cars that weigh under 1,000 kgs. So you can mix and match and see what works. So let us begin with what I got. In terms of the commons, I'm going for just a general mix of standard tire and performance tire cars, most of them being standard with 2 performance tire inclusions with the Morgan and the Bentley Mulsanne. Moving on to uncommons, as you can see, I'm going for a nice little variety range as well. Going for a nice little range of cars as well. We've got some medium ground clearance performance tire cars, some standard tire cars, some low ground clearance standard tire and performance tire cars, and then obviously with the heavier cars like the Holden Suburban and the Nissan Patrol, etc, etc. Now, one thing that I want to remain consistent throughout this special tag is that it's gonna have no off-road tire cars. I feel like if you are going to design a special tag and you want, you know, the cars to be useful, you want the pack to feel like it's more worth it, you have to be knowledgeable of what tires and what types of cars cannot cross paths with each other. So for example, if you have a special tag with off-road tires and all-surface tires and you put off-road tracks in the challenge levels itself, most people are going to gravitate towards getting the off-road tire cars. Most people are going to upgrade the off-road tire cars if they had the choice. But if you don't put any off-road tire cars in, then it kind of makes the players have to upgrade all-surface tire cars if they encounter an off-road level that they need to pass in the challenge. And it also makes all-surface tire cars more useful. So moving on to the rares, as you can see, there's a decent mix as well in terms of RQ. There's, I think in my opinion, decent enough distribution from 30 all the way to 39. Now the Charger RT is not over 2,000 kilograms. It's also not under 1,000 kilograms. But one thing that you will see a quirk and feature is that the Charger RT will always be in my wish list no matter what. So yeah, that's the only card that's not going to be in this David and Goliath tag, but it has to be there because it's my favorite card of all time. It's always going to be permanently wish list. So moving on to the rest of the tag, as you can see, I went for a nice variety of medium ground clearance performance tire cards and also for tire cars. Those are the kind of things that I kind of wanted to focus on for this special tag. So you can see a lot of Volkswagen Touaregs, Cadillac Escalade EXTs, and then in terms of medium ground clearance performance tire cars, it's going to be represented mainly by Bentleys because they're all really heavy. And then we have the Ford SVT F-150 as well, which is high ground clearance and is a very heavy car of over 2,000 pounds. Then we end up with some two performance low ground clearance cars in your Alfa Romeos. Moving on to the Ultra Rares, again, I would like to think it's a decent spread. There is, a little bit of crap, but it isn't a special tag if there isn't crap. So we've got things like the Navigator and the Infiniti QX80. But one thing that you will always see in my special tags, the ones that I make, is that I will always bring in some type of value because you need to understand that you want people to open the packs and you want to feel satisfied when you open a pack of a special tag. So there are going to be a lot of really nice cards for you to unpack in this as well. I also added some prize cards like the GMC Yukon XL Denali because if you won it in the past, chances are you've never really used it for anything. So this might be a useful situation, a useful tag for you to use the GMC Yukon if this tag ever becomes real. I added in a lot of low ground clearance twisty British cars because they're all ridiculously light. So things like the Lotuses, the Caterhams, and I specifically didn't go for the newer update ones besides the 7310. But I didn't go for things like the Zenith, for example, because I wanted to basically utilize cars that used to be really good, give them a time to shine once again, like the Lotus 340R, the Lotus Exige S1, and the Fiat Abarth SE. We ended up with some medium ground clearance cars with Mercedes AMG S65 and S65 AMG. Those two cars kind of bring some medium ground clearance variety and some drag variations as well, because those two have really good MRA. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best dragsters, because if I were to put Test Bowl in the challenge and you had to use Ultra Rares, the Mercedes-Benzes may not be the best option to use, and you might be going for the Bentley Mulsanne or the Fiat Abarth. So it kind of makes the Bentley relatively useful as well because it has the highest top speed out of the Ultra categories that I've selected. Now, moving on to the Epics. Now, I think a cardinal sin that Hutch is doing with all their special tags is they're adding too many 70 and below Epics. 70 and below Epics, I've said so many times on the channel, is a waste of time, is a waste of resources, and you're basically upgrading cars with fake stats, with fake RQs. 65s now, 66s now, they're not actually 65 or 66s. They lose to Ultra Rares. So I'm going for the best of the best 65s for my only two 65 inclusions with the Caterham 270 and the Ford F-150 Lightning. One being really heavy, one being very light. Now the F-150 Lightning isn't the best of the best 65, but it's not bad. I think it deserves to be 65, and it doesn't deserve to drop to an Ultra Rare category. I think Hutch making you unpack an epic 65 in a special tag that performs worse than Ultra Rares is honestly such a scummy move. I would never do that in any of my tags. Bentley Bentayga Diesel, Ford GT70 as well. This is a pretty useful 67 because of its year, 1970. It's also medium ground clearance and roll drive, handles okay, low 0 to 60. And then now outside of that, it just jumps up to 74 and we've got higher range stuff all the way to the end. So we have things like the Radical, the Before BMS. I feel like the Before hasn't gotten a lot of use after APGP. Radical could get some use again if it wants to. The Hyundai Envision 74 is a pretty cool car, and then we had some other older cars that we don't see that often anymore, like the Lotus 211 Supercharged as well as the KTM Expo. And I made it really clear that I did not go for any basically really high handling new update performance tire cars because I wanted things like the Lotus 211 and the KTM Expo to shine in situations where you can't use the slick tires, which the Radical and the Before possesses. Then maybe if there's a little bit of wet in there, you could probably use a Lotus 211. Also, if there's a little bit of wet, like a wet fast circuit or something, there's some four-wheel drive variety for you to use between the Bentley Continental Supersports, the Mercedes AMG S63, and the Porsche Taycan. Now, I want you guys to know that every single car that I chose is well thought out. So like Lotus Elise Sport 135, for example, the reason why that's selected is because it's a mainstay. If you played the campaign, you probably have the car. If you've fused the car away, that's on you. That's a personal problem. Then we end off with the legendaries, and again, pretty decent legendaries. Obviously, there might be some quote-unquote duds like the Bentley Flying Spur, but I do see some value in the Bentley Flying Spur because it's medium four-wheel drive saloon, 5-seater plus or something like that. So you can get some use out of it compared to other 81s in the game, especially those rear-wheel drive drive coupes, four-wheel drive, low ground clearance cars, which are a dime a dozen nowadays. Think about all those Porsches and Lamborghinis. A radical, just some brand new car representation, and I went really heavy on the Porsches as well, mainly because like I freaking love Porsches, but I feel like it's a kind of brand where if you unpack and your name is not brazen, you would probably you won't feel bad unpacking it, like. And I chose some of the better ones too, like the Taycan Turbo S, the Taycan Turbo S Cross Turismo, and one of the better ones, the Panamera Turbo, one of the better Panameras. Panameras. And then on the high end, I got a little bit of prize cars, so obviously like Hutch likes to add their prize cars. So I went for ones that have already been given out. I don't understand why Hutch also adds like cars in special tags to prize cars that haven't been awarded to anybody. Like, what's the point? Why are you there? But yeah, adding things like the Nissan GTR El Nismo, the Rimac Navara, Cayenne Turbo GT. If you won those cars, congratulations, you might be able to utilize it in the challenge. Also, I went for some pretty heavy hitters, like literally heavy cars, utilizing the Cayennes and also the Durango. And in terms of the lightweight representation, we have things like the Radical RX EV8 and the Lancia ECV. So that is my first special tag suggestion. Some of a David Goliath situation, which combines and utilizes the heaviest cars in the game and the lightest cars in the game. And I think the most important thing is that the theme is very self-explanatory. Not like trading paint, where people don't really know what is the correlation between the name of the tag and the cars being provided. So let's move on to the second exhibit. Alright, exhibit B. I think this one just makes sense, honestly. 100 cars selected, 11 uncommon, 20 rare, 19 super, 19 ultra, 17 epic, and 14 legendary. Now I know exactly what you're thinking. Oh, there are no commons. How can you make a special tag with no commons? Like I said, there's only a wish list limit to 100 cars. So I think that this special tag would be super self-explanatory. I wouldn't even need to show you the commons. You can add some commons and go a little over 100 cars. Sure, that's fine. But I want to showcase more of the legendaries, epics, and ultras that I want to select. I'm pretty sure you guys understand what's going on over here. The only question is what should we call this special tag? Maybe something like bumper stickers or something like that, because all you're seeing is the back. So this is a very self-explanatory tag, and I feel like they've not utilized a lot of these. So like, photos where it's just the back of the car, photos where it's just cars with white backgrounds. They have it for in the shadows, which is cool, but there's definitely more obvious ones that they could utilize over things like, well, trading paint. So let us begin. As you can see, okay, so the theme. Every time I want to select cars, I would always go for some kind of theme. So for this one, it's performance tires and standard tire heavy. I think there's a couple stick tire cars in here, but I decided not to go for any all-surface tire cars or any off-road tire cars. So if I were to make track sets for this challenge for bumpers, they could just call it bumper stickers for Exhibit 2, right? I would just make track sets which focus on, wet and dry track sets. Of course, if you're Charger, the Charger's always going to be there. And maybe it would be interesting to put some dirt track sets in, because although they're not all surface tire or off-road tire cars, it's a good time for players to kind of collect four-wheel drive standard tire cars, or just four-wheel drive or just standard tire cars in general. So like, front-wheel drive standard tire cars like the Audi A4 or the Audi AT. There are a lot of standard tire cars represented within this tag. 23 of them are standard tires. In fact, 71 is performance. I do have one all-surface and one off-road, but that's a legendary and an epic, and you will see why I selected those two later, because the only all-surface tire car I selected is a prize car as well. So there are, a decent amount of standard tire cars over here. We got the Mitsubishi Mirage, for example. We have the Subaru Legacy, and then we have the BMW 530D. And then, on top of that, we also have our Mitsubishi Galant VR4, which is four-wheel drive. Not standard, yes, but it might give you a little bit of traction bonus. This is where it's fun to design track sets for a challenge, because you can kind of ask yourself and work backwards with the car you have. It's like, if you want the Mitsubishi Galant to be, one of the more useful cars in a certain level, then, think about what track set would suit the Galant the best. I'm sure Hutch has those kind of resources. Another thing that a lot of these, butt pictures, these bumper sticker pictures have in common is that a lot of these cars are from the 2000s or from before the, the 2000s. So like 1990s to 1970s. You'll see a pretty decent amount, mostly coming from Porsche. So the Charger, right, 968, the Porsche 911, 1996. We have the Porsche 911 Turbo 3.0, 1976, etc., etc. We have a couple more center tire cars in here as well, the Mercedes-Benz C250, as well as the Maserati Quattroporte. I tried to go for as many center tire cars as I could. I think I went for almost every back photo of a center tire car. We have some more representations of medium ground clearance, the BMW M5 and the Ford Escort RS, and then we have some low ground clearance performance-centered cars like the AMG C63 911. Now, I'm going off of the trend with the first one, with the David and Goliath situation. I actively chose not to choose or not to select the RQ65, 66, and 67s. There are a couple Subarus with, you know, butt photos, like, you know, background photos, or like back thumbnail photos, whatever you want to call them. Did not decide to choose those because no one wants to upgrade them, and I feel like, honestly, having those kind of cars in the pack is just not good. Now, this isn't like the best selection of epics by any means. I don't think a lot of people would want to collect like the Impreza or the BMW 840, but at least you can get some value out of the M3 CSL, given that it handles really well and it's medium ground clearance. You can also get some value out of the D-Tomaso DeVille because it's 4-wheel drive, 86 handling when you max it out, and it has high ground clearance, and also is a saloon and SUV, so it's got that double tag, which is pretty cool. The only all-surface car that I went for is a Range Rover Sport SVR, and the only reason why I went for this is because maybe if you put Ocean City Streets, this might be a pretty useful car, but also because like not a lot of people own this, so you know that could probably be a reward for people that decided to win the Sport SVR when they had this as a choice. I think it was like this or the Camaro ZL11LE, or it could be a reward to players that won it when it first came out back in 2018 during the Land Rover Jaguar update. So, you know, just added that in there because why not? I don't think there's going to be much Ocean City Streets in terms of epic and above. There's not a lot of medium ground clearance cars that you can use. The only ones being the M3 CSL, the Impreza, and then you have your standard tire, yes, you have the Rover, yes, and I believe you have one more, yeah, there's the 640i, because this is low ground clearance, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, we ended up with a couple of Porsches. Now, there are a lot of Porsches, but then again, Porsche is the brand with the most butt photos, and I think some highlights would definitely be the Porsche 911 GT3 Touring, and that's about it. To be fair, the Epics doesn't look very nice in terms of a selection, but there weren't a lot of cars with just their back as the photo. I think the best ones would be the Volkswagen Golf GTI W12 alongside the 911 GT3 Touring. There are some decent ones like the 911 Carrera S and the Carrera GT2, or the 911 GT2, sorry, but nothing too special. Moving on to the legendaries, again, it's a mixture of Porsche, BMW, and Lamborghini. We also have the Banana, and the only off-road tire car that I selected is the Hyundai i20 R5. Obviously, if I was making the track sets, I wouldn't be putting any off-road track sets for the final section, because that would literally make the Hyundai i20 a gatekeeper, and we do not want legendary gatekeepers. Rare gatekeepers, uncommon gatekeepers, that's still fine, but an off-road legendary gatekeeper, now that's just pushing it too much. And then some of the higher tier legendaries that people can unpack would basically be comprised of some Lamborghinis, some McLaren 720S GT3, which I feel like a lot of people might want to get, and a Porsche 911 Turbo S. And there are also some prize cars thrown into the mix, like the Jetta G56, the McLaren P1, and the Dodge Viper GTSR. Out of the two tags that I showed you today, I would prefer the selection of Exhibit A, which is the David and Goliath tag. But this one isn't too bad as well. I think the main thing about the ones that I've shown you today is that I think that we need to take a step back and focus on special tags that are genuinely on theme with the name. I would love to see a congruent theme that would make it a lot more fun. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for today. Let me know down in the comments below what other ideas you might have for any special tags. I might do another one because I have more ideas in my mind as well to share with you guys. But anyway, guys, with that said, I hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. hold tight all night, cruise to Jacksonville, Atlantic. Blonde hair, don't care, look like Leslie Brooks. Pin up girls everywhere with the drop dead look.